So this is what your column should have looked like. We go from 360 to 540, 720, 900, 1080, 1260, 1440, 1620, 1800. You might also recognize that it increases by 180 each time you add a side. Now, this is a formula you're going to have to memorize and be able to use, because this is something you can reference in class and just to kind of give you some more practice, but you can't use this on a test or a quiz. If we go back to our notes, the next example says work backwards. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll give you the total degrees and you have to tell them how many sides the shape has. So this one says the sum of the measures of the interior angles of a convex polygon is 1260. Classify the polygon by the number of sides. So looking at our chart we just did, we can tell this is going to be a nonagon. But I want to show you how, because there are going to be times where it's going to be a shape that you don't have memorized. You don't have to memorize the total interior degrees of each shape, because if you can memorize the formula, you can just find it yourself. So I know that my formula is n minus 2 times 180, and that equals 1260, because they gave me that total degrees. So I just need to work backwards and figure out, how do I get back to just n? Well, first I'm going to divide by 180. If you were thinking maybe you would distribute, that's okay. You can do that. You'll have a little bit of different steps than I will, but you'll get the same answer. If I take 1260 divided by 180, I get 7. If I add 2, I get n equals 9, which I know is a nonagon. The last type of problem you'll have to do with this interior angle total is variable problem. So if you have a diagram with variables, the biggest thing is you have to pay attention to how many sides it has. So this is a quadrilateral because I see it has 4 sides. So if I know the total interior degrees of this shape, I can just add them all up to equal that number and solve for the variable. Again, you have to make sure you use the correct number. If it has 4 sides, my total should be 360. If it has a different number of sides, I need to use whatever that total interior degrees is for that shape. For example, triangles, you guys have done this a lot. You always add it to 180. Quadrilaterals, you'll always add to 360. Pentagons, you'll always add to 540, and so on. All I have to do is take every single number here and add it up, because they should add to 360, and I can just subtract to find x. So if I take 360 minus 135 minus 112 minus 71, I get x equals 42. So my answer is 42. This one's pretty basic because it's just numbers and one variable. But let's say it was like x, 2x plus 3, 4x minus 5, 10x plus 7. Whatever they look like, you just add them up to that shape, or to that total interior degrees. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is exterior angles. So exterior angles we've talked about a little bit with triangles. And you're really going to like this because there's no formula for this. Every shape, every polygon in the world has the same amount or total amount of exterior degrees in them. So the sum of the measures of the exterior angles of a convex polygon is, looking at this shape, we know these are our interior angles. We just talked about interior angles. The exterior angles are going to be these ones. When you take those sides and you extend them, you get your exterior angles. The total for exterior angles for any shape is always 360 degrees. No matter what the shape looks like, it is always 360. So if we look over at example 4, you have to recognize, even though this is a pentagon, has 5 sides, they're not interior. So I don't care about that other formula. They're exterior angles because they're on the outside, so I know they all add to 360. Again, doesn't matter if it's a decagon, if it's a 20gon, the exterior angles always add to 360. So if I take 70 plus 60 plus 65 plus 40 plus y, I can subtract, and I get an answer of 125. And that's it. Now if you go over to your graphic organizer again, we can now fill out the second to last column. It says the sum of the exterior angles. That is 360 for every shape. So you can write it if you want in all of them. You can just draw an arrow, but that's 360 no matter what the shape looks like. The last two notes, or last two slides I should say, has to do with something called regular polygon. A regular polygon is just a special type of polygon that has equal sides and equal angles. So if you think about a square, that's an example of a regular polygon. If you think about a hexagon or a stop sign is an octagon with congruent sides and congruent angles. It has equal sides and equal angles. So in these last two shapes, those definitely weren't regular. They're very irregular shapes. All the angles aren't the same. In a regular polygon, they are all the same. So let's say I told you I have a square. Okay, so it's a regular polygon. And I want to know the measure of each interior angle or each exterior angle. Before we talked about the totals, the total interior, the total exterior. If I want to know each, how could I use the total to figure out the measure of each angle? Well, hopefully you can figure out that I could just take my total degrees, whether it's 360 or 720 or however many degrees there are in that shape, and just divide by n, or the number of sides. Because in a polygon, if it has 6 sides, it has 6 angles. If it has 10 sides, it has 10 angles. Just to put this into context, it's like if I brought in 20 cookies for the class and I split them between 10 people. I wanted to know how many cookies would each person get. I'd take that total 10 divided by total 20 divided by the number of people and get my answer for how many cookies each person would get. So when I ask you to find the measure of each interior angle or each exterior angle, you have to be really careful. So if I look here, it says find the measure of one interior angle and one exterior angle of a regular hexagon. So we know hexagon is n equals 6. So I need my interior total. The total degrees on the inside of this shape, we can look on our graphic organizer. It's going to be 720. If I want to know how many degrees are in each angle, out of that 720 degrees, it's split between 6 angles, I would just divide. So if I take 720 divided by 6, I get 120 degrees in each angle. Now moving over to exterior, I don't want to use 720. I want to use 360. So depending on the shape, this one will change. This one will never change. Exterior total is always 360. So if I take 360 divided by 6, I get 60 degrees. And that's it. Just be really careful when you're doing practice or on a quiz or a test, read the directions. If it says to find the total interior degrees or the total exterior degrees, that's different than each interior angle or each exterior angle. So we're going to go over to our graphic organizer one more time and finish this top row here. So if I wanted to find each interior angle, remember that's the total divided by the number of sides. So if my total is n minus 2 times 180, I would divide that by n. For each exterior, again, I need to take my total. My total degrees on the exterior of a shape is 360 divided by the number of sides. Now, all you have to do to complete these columns is go ahead down. You already have your total. Divide by the number of sides. So 180 divided by 3 gives me 60, which should make sense. If it's an equilateral, equiangular triangle, all the angles and sides are the same, so each measure would just be 60. Here I'll take 360 divided by 4 and get 90. 540 divided by 5, and so on. So you can go ahead and complete this column. Now for exterior, my total is just 360 every time. So for every one of these, I'm taking 360 over 3, 360 over 4, 360 over 5. If you get decimals, just round them to one decimal place. If I take 360 over 3, I get 120 degrees. One thing you should always recognize is an interior angle and an exterior angle are always supplementary. So if I have a shape, let's just say it's a triangle, here's an interior, here's an exterior, they should always add to 180. So each of these pairs should always add to 180. So go ahead and finish those two columns, and when you're finished, you can check it with mine, and then you can move on to the practice. If you'd like to pause the video, you can do that, or if you'd like to just follow along as I go through, you may do that as well.